You walked away with your integrity intact. They swore you'd come crawling back. But months passed, and something changed. They stopped pursuing you. Instead, they began to unravel. Today, we uncover why losing an empath doesn't simply wound a narcissist. It ignites their final irreversible breakdown. Picture this: the person who once dominated every room now cancels plans week after week. Their confidence has eroded. Their stories no longer make sense, not because of you, but because you were the last mirror sustaining their illusion. Without you, that reflection splintered. Why is this important? Because their collapse isn't revenge. It's exposure. You weren't merely a partner. You were the cornerstone of their manufactured identity. And when that cornerstone disappears, even the most refined facade cannot remain upright. This isn't karma. It's cause and effect. You believed they were powerful. The charm, the control, the icy composure, it all seemed immovable. What you didn't see was the framework underneath: your empathy, your forgiveness, your readiness to believe them. Remove that support, and the entire structure caves in. This isn't guesswork, it's psychology. A narcissist's identity is parasitic, constructed not from inner substance, but borrowed from those who reflect their inflated self-image. And empaths reflect it best. When you leave, you don't just withdraw your energy, you remove their sense of existence. That sudden silence from them isn't serenity, it's shutdown. Without your emotional responses fueling their act, their system stalls. No theatrics, no hoovering, just the empty echo of a self that never truly formed and now has nowhere to conceal itself. You weren't imagining their deterioration, you were observing entropy. A system built on falseness cannot sustain itself indefinitely. The energy required to uphold a false persona, to gaslight, to manipulate, to smear, is enormous. Without supply, that energetic debt must be paid. This isn't about gloating. It's about freeing you from guilt. Their downfall isn't your doing. It's the unavoidable result of a life constructed on instability. You didn't shatter them. Reality did. Your boundaries simply hastened what was already decaying inside. The most dangerous illusion they sold you was that they were untouchable. But invincibility isn't performance. It's wholeness. And the narcissist is divided, split between their authentic self and the character they project. That fracture doesn't only strain the mind, it corrodes the spirit. So let's lift the veil on this ultimate unraveling. The narcissist isn't merely losing control. They're losing the only thing that ever made them feel tangible. You. Without you, there is no one to impress, nothing to embody, no role to play. Planned. At the heart of their collapse lies a harsh reality. Narcissists don't possess a stable self. They stage one, and every performance requires spectators. You weren't just a lover. You were the audience that made the act convincing. No audience means no production. No production means no identity. Their mind becomes trapped in hypervigilance, not scanning for threats, but for flaws in their own disguise. Did they slip? Did someone notice? This relentless self-monitoring drains them beyond sustainability. Without your affirmation, the system crashes. Blamed. This isn't ordinary stress, it's existential starvation. They reject their authentic self so completely that their nervous system begins to mirror the emptiness within. Sleep disappears. Focus fragments, not due to illness, but due to the absence of a mirror reflecting their being. Stillness terrifies them because stillness invites truth. So they drown silence with distraction, new admirers, chaos, substances. Yet without an empath's depth to draw from, these new sources feel thin, fleeting, unfulfilling. The hunger only intensifies with each failed bond. Their unexplained symptoms aren't random. They're signals. Fatigue isn't laziness. It's the exhaustion of performing humanity while feeling hollow. Anxiety isn't fragility. It's the mind refusing rest while the spirit remains exiled. The body speaks when the soul cannot. Internally, they are submerged in shame. But after bearing it for years, it seeps out sideways as anger, as dominance, as abrupt withdrawal. Unable to process shame, their psyche absorbs it, and what remains unprocessed turns into psychological erosion. They confuse admiration with nourishment. But applause doesn't sustain the spirit. Validation doesn't resolve trauma. Love bombing doesn't mend a fractured core. Their entire survival method depends on external supply, while a true self thrives on internal alignment. Without that alignment, even the most magnetic performer becomes an empty vessel. This breakdown isn't abrupt. It has been forming since childhood. The moment they learned love was conditional upon performance, they exchanged authenticity for approval. And each exchange left another scar etched into their nervous system. Now, decades later, those wounds are surfacing as a complete system breakdown. Their deepest fear isn't abandonment, it's embodiment. To actually feel their own pain, their own emptiness, their own unmet longing would demolish the illusion they've protected for years. So they numb out, they distract themselves, they keep performing, but the body keeps score. It remembers every moment they betrayed their truth to gain approval, and eventually the debt demands payment. Understand this, their collapse is not your triumph, it's their reckoning, and it's written not in dramatic confessions, but in silence, in canceled plans, in hollow eyes, in a life force that seems to slip through their grasp like smoke. The walking shell isn't moving toward you, they're drifting further away from themselves. The turning point doesn't arrive with a medical label. It comes in the quietest instant when they stop hoovering. No more late night messages. No more I miss you. Just silence. And in that silence, you realize absence removed the anesthesia. Now the pain is undeniable. This is the psychological twist they never anticipated. Their downfall isn't triggered by public exposure. It's driven by private implosion. As more people walk away, fewer mirrors remain to sustain their fabricated self. And without reflection, the illusion dissolves. They may attempt one final hoover, not with charm, but with urgency. I need help. I'm not okay. Not because they've transformed, but because their inner structure is failing and they're desperate for reinforcement. This isn't healing, it's emergency stabilization. Don't mistake collapse for remorse. Their fear isn't about the harm they caused you. It's about losing control of the story. In that moment, you're not a loved one. You're a witness they can't mute. And the more clearly you observe their unraveling, the more their authority disintegrates. This is where the power truly shifts, not with confrontation, but with calm detachment. The day you stop fearing their breakdown and recognize it as the natural result of a life built on instability, changes. You don't owe explanations for why you won't return. You simply live as though their unraveling no longer concerns you. They may lash out. They may tell mutual friends you destroyed them. They'll cast themselves as victims of your supposed coldness. But projection is their final shield, because deep down, they understand the truth. They didn't lose you. They lost the version of themselves that only existed through your eyes. You are no longer their audience. You are your own witness. And that transformation from caretaker to sovereign sends shockwaves through their fragile ecosystem. A self-sufficient you cannot be manipulated. A centered you cannot be baited. A silent you forces them to confront the one sound they've spent a lifetime drowning out, their own emptiness. Land this turning point is more than your freedom. It's their reckoning. For the first time, they must confront reality. They can imitate well, but they cannot imitate. They can simulate reality, but they cannot be without something. They become static in the dark. A bland observe their collapse not with satisfaction, but with clarity. Without your belief propping up their act, their social energy fades. They post less, they withdraw. Not because they're thriving privately, but because performance requires fuel, and their reserves are depleted. The curtain has fallen. They begin cycling faster, leaping from person to person, chasing the high you once provided. Yet it never replicates what you gave. You weren't just supply. You saw flashes of their humanity and stayed until you realized staying meant self-erasure. Band their mask starts slipping in plain view. Friends notice the weight change, the shaking hands, the sudden mood swings disguised as pressure. New partners feel it too. The vibrancy is gone, the spark has dimmed, the body can no longer sustain the ego's demands. And in that widening gap, reality seeps through. Internally, they are in free fall. No fresh admiration quiets the voice growing louder each day. You are empty. The void they spent decades concealing with charm, conquest, and control is no longer hidden. It is all that remains. And now it reverberates louder than ever, filling every quiet room with its echo. They will reconstruct the past with calculated precision, insisting you deserted them in their darkest hour or worsened their breakdown. Not because it's accurate, but because your clarity exposes their deception. If they can undermine your credibility, they can temporarily restore their illusion of victimhood. But truth carries more weight than distortion. Every survivor who walks away weakens their facade. Every boundary you enforce becomes a fracture in their armor. Gradually, the world stops applauding them and starts recognizing them, not as the dynamic force they portray, but as the emotionally drained manipulator they've always been. Band their collapse isn't explosive, it's subtle, a gradual, unavoidable slide into irrelevance. As people begin valuing authenticity over theatrics, steadiness over intensity, and sincerity over chaos, the demand for their illusion diminishes. The culture shifts, and deception withers when attention fades. They will never truly grasp why you left. In their version of events, they gave you everything: passion, focus, excitement, devotion. But you weren't seeking spectacle. You were seeking safety. You longed for someone who could hold space without consuming yours. They confuse noise with depth, urgency with loyalty. Their tragedy is not yours to shoulder, repair, or grieve. Let them unravel in the silence they engineered. Let them confront the mirror without your reflection, without your energy, without your belief sustaining their act. Your freedom began the moment you stopped being the solution to their internal void. And while they frantically hunt for another source, recycling your kindness, imitating your calm, studying your vulnerability as a template for their next pursuit, you are doing something transformative. You are rebuilding from the inside out, not for applause, not for approval, but because you finally understand you are worth more than being someone's supply. Here is the undeniable truth. Their collapse was never your obligation. You didn't cause it. You didn't hasten it. You simply withdrew support from a lie that was already decaying. Their unraveling is not your weight to carry. It's the outcome of a lifetime spent avoiding accountability. Real strength isn't found in salvaging their ruins. It's found in refusing to step back into them. You don't owe your energy simply because they are suffering. Their pain echoes from choices made long before you entered their life. Compassion is human. Self-erasure is not virtuous. Healing begins when you stop monitoring their decline for evidence of remorse. When you understand that their breakdown isn't proof of growth, it's proof of limitation. You weren't weak because they exploited you. You were resilient because you endured. You were wise because you walked away. You are not damaged. You are not cold. You are reclaimed ground. Every boundary you draw lays another stone in the foundation of your restored self. Every no is an act of loyalty to your own spirit. Every moment of chosen quiet over chaos declares one truth. My peace is not negotiable. Let their collapse remain their confinement. You are free to love someone who doesn't require your disappearance to feel whole. Someone whose presence replenishes rather than drains you. Someone who honors your empathy instead of exploiting it. You deserve connections that enrich your life. Each time you choose yourself over their crisis, you reclaim stolen strength. Every boundary is a revival. Every silence is resistance. Protecting your light isn't selfish. It's sovereignty. And sovereignty unsettles. Narcissists more than exposure ever could. One day, you will sit alone in a peaceful room, and the thought of them will not disturb your spirit. Not because memory vanished, but because you forgave yourself for believing you had to rescue them. You will recognize their suffering was never rooted in you. It was born from their refusal to confront themselves. You were never the flaw. You were the mirror reflecting their emptiness, and they shattered the glass rather than face what it showed. But you survived the breaking, and from those fragments, you didn't just rebuild, you evolved. You transformed hurt into clarity, betrayal into boundaries. Your future belongs to someone who not only cherishes your warmth, but safeguards your flame. Someone who doesn't merely admire your endurance, but protects your peace. Someone who understands that love isn't extracted through control or performance. It's offered freely when both people are whole and present. They may panic, they may plead, they may vow to change, yet none of it alters your path because you have already stepped off their stage. From this point forward, your life is no longer defined by their collapse, their approval, or their hunger. It is defined by your calm, your joy, your unwavering truth. You were always enough.